Okay, we'll get started. Welcome to our Heritage Club meeting. Thank you for attending. We have a rock star up here, obviously, right? So Gordon is going to come. Gordon Jones is coming, and we put some photos together. Scott Templin helped us with some photos from the museum as well. So Gordon, well, he'll tell you the whole story, but he's on the number 7 Hill Historic Preservation Committee. So he's going to tell the story and talk about the number 7 Hill and past, present, and future. Okay, welcome, Gordon.
My pointer. Can everybody hear me all right? I can turn it down or up. Got a little volume. First of all, I'd like to thank the Heritage Club for this opportunity. It means a lot to us. Our history is very important and we need to save it. And we're right in the middle of that struggle right now. So thank you very much. I would also like to thank Maria and Scott for helping me out with the technology, because this is way above me. So thank you very much. I would also like to thank Nick Henderson. He's helped me from the very beginning. I gave him a tour of the mine site and he gave me good advice on that. And I'd also like to thank Pete Horish. He sent me some really cool pictures that need to go to the Rosman Museum at some point. They're original cool pictures. And I'd like to thank Dave, a lot of people. But I just wanted to let you all know this is Fred Krueger's fault. Everything I say here tonight is his fault. Because if it wasn't for him, yeah, I wouldn't be here. He's definitely a mentor to me. And what he taught me in school 50 years ago never really came to light until not that many years ago. So thanks, Fred. So what I'm going to do is make a quick trip through the early history of Cle Elum and end up at number 7 mine is the main focus that we have. So I know time is short, so I'm going to start it off quickly. So in the beginning, we had Native Americans living here, and they were from the Yakima tribe. And the Indians that lived up, here we go, I'm supposed to say Native Americans, sorry. With the Yakima Nation, and the ones that lived up the Yakima River were from the Kittitas Band. And they resided mostly where the Kanawha River goes into the Yakima River and up at Lake Cle Elum. Lake Cle Elum was more of a seasonal place for them because of the harsh winters, but they went up there to do their fishing, berry picking, and then most of the time came back down the river to escape the hazardous winter conditions. In 1855, the Walla Walla Treaty was formed. In this treaty, the Yakima and Colville tribes were given reservation. They had to go to a reservation. And they were given more or less like 5 years, 3 to 5 years for everybody to go to their reservations. So that was in 1855. So a lot of those Native Americans didn't report to the reservations, and they were classified as renegades. And how many that really didn't go, we don't really know, but it wasn't very many. But we do know a few interesting facts about those Native Americans. James Masterson bought 2,380 acres from sheaf Poestia for 6 deer skins and a plug of tobacco. A plug of tobacco is just a square of tobacco that's pressed with honey or molasses in it, and 6 deer skins. But back then, Native Americans, they didn't know anything about ownership of land. They just believed that they lived on God's land and they were supposed to take care of God's land. So when this all happened, they didn't even have a concept about owning property. So that's an interesting fact there. One of James Masterson's best friends and was John Quitty, and that's where Indian John Hill came from. He was the Native American that lived up by Indian John Hill, but he was supposed to be on the reservation for some reason, but he ended up owning property. And the reason why we think he owned property was because he was good friends with James Masterson, and he had a few ties to people, and that's how Indian John survived and was able to live his life out on Indian John Hill. The first settlers, Thomas Gamble, claimed East Cle Elum, and he also became the first mayor of Cle Elum. Walter Reed claimed West Cle Elum, and that's in 1883. 1884, they found coal in Roslyn, and that was a big deal because the Stampede Tunnel project started that same year in 1884. So what they needed is, once they completed the Stampede Pass tunnel, they needed coal to get steam engines over the pass and back over, and that was coal was very important for steam engines, of course. So luckily they had coal in Roslyn. Okay, the Stampede Pass started in 1884. The depot was built in Cle Elum in 1884. It was supposed to have been built at the mouth of the Teanaway River, where it goes into the Yakima River, because at that time, cattle ranches like Masterson, they had cattle farms, plus the logging up the Teanaway River was huge back then. So that was the perfect spot to put a depot, they figured. But when they discovered coal in Roslyn, they built a spur off of the main line in Cle Elum. It wasn't Cle Elum yet, to go where the coal mine trail is, and they brought the coal down from that spur to the main line in Cle Elum. Also, the Stampede project was going on, and that would be the headquarters. Cle Elum would be the headquarters for that project too. So they decided to put the depot instead of the mouth of the Teanaway River up to where the depot was present. And that's right across from Napa, next to the railroad tracks in Cle Elum. That's where the depot was. So that's where they built the depot. James Masterson got a contract for railroad ties from Cle Elum to the Stampede Tunnel. That's like 30 miles of railroad ties. So at that time, there was a sawmill needed to be established somewhere. So Walter Reed and Thomas Johnson started the largest sawmill in eastern Washington, in the Teanaway. And there was all kinds of building going on, depots, railroad buildings, mining buildings. So it was a huge, huge sawmill. In 1886, the first train in Cle Elum, and that's when they built the railroad line to Roslyn, was that same year. So they already had coal in Roslyn, but when the line was completed to Roslyn was in 1886. At that same year, they had test holes dug or drilled from Masterson Ranch all the way to Lake Cle Elum to see where the seams of coal were. And this was always called the Roslyn coal field, but it went from Masterson Ranch all the way up to Lake Cle Elum. In 1894, they found coal on the Gamble property in Cle Elum at 240 feet deep. And where this was at, it's just behind the senior center. It's also called the Independent Mine. And that's where Gamble, that's where they found coal. They formed the Cle Elum Coal Company, also known as the Independent Mine. So Cle Elum had a coal mine at that time, and Roslyn and Cle Elum both had coal at that time. In 1893, M.C. Miller started a sawmill, and that's right where Shoemakers is right now. And so they needed sawmills. There was a lot going on. In 1900, Gamble sold his mining lease behind the senior center to the Northwest Improvement Company. In 1902, the town of Cle Elum, the town of Cle Elum was established in 1902. Walter Reed's wife was a Steiner and wanted First Street wide enough so they could turn a wagon around in the street without having to back up. So there was a Reed addition. That's up by number 7 Mine on 7 Hill. And there was also the Steiner edition. Thomas Gamble, was the first mayor. And also in 1902, the first electricity was brought into Roslyn and Cle Elum. The Cle Elum electricity was provided by a boiler house that I'll have a picture of here later, up above number 7 Mine. The boiler house was up there before the mine, number 7 Mine started, because the seam of coal came out of the ground about a half a mile below the ridge up there. And so the easiest way for them to get coal was to find out where that coal came out of the ground, and they strip mined that coal down as far as they could until it got too expensive, and then they had to tunnel mine it. So that coal from the strip mine was brought down to the boiler house, the number 7 boiler house, and that produced electricity. And that's where Cle Elum got their first electricity. It wasn't much, but that was the first electricity. Okay, where am I? In 1904, Frank Carpenter started his banking business in Cle Elum. In 1906, the Cle Elum State Bank was completed. In 1907, the number 7 mine opened, and this mine produced the most coal of all the mines combined. The reason for this was the seams, they were in tiers. So there would be a seam of coal, but they're in tiers. So you'd have coal, then you'd have slag, slate, then you'd have coal, and it went layers like a sandwich up. And it produced a lot of coal. The only other mine that produced, had better seams, they called it the Big Dirty. And it was next to Patrick's mine. And it was also owned by the Roslyn Coal Company. And they called it the Big Dirty. It was just a solid seam of coal that didn't have those layers in it. But the number 7 mine produced a lot of coal. 1914, the Carpenter House was built. World War I, the peak of coal production during World War I was the biggest production of coal in the upper county. And it slumped in 1919, the coal production slumped off, and it never did really regain. There was a lot of factors in that. Steam engines started to get replaced by diesel. Electricity was being replaced by hydro power. There's a lot of things that coal wasn't needed as much as it was before. Okay, in 1921, Psych Briscoe started the Cle Elum Ski Club. And this is really he was my Boy Scout master. He was my brother's Boy Scout master. And he had this vision and that they needed a ski jump up over on the other side of the ridge. So if you go up Montgomery Avenue, just about straight from Montgomery Avenue in Cle Elum, up just over the ridge, not too far, was a ski jump. And there's a picture of it. I wouldn't even climb up that thing without skis, but yeah, it's really scary to me. In 1923, so 1921, Psych Briscoe started the Cle Elum Ski Club. 1923, the ski jump was completed. This 2 miles north of Cle Elum. It was called the Kiwanis Ski Jump. The record jump for that ski jump was 210 feet. Cle Elum's nickname was Ski Town. Nickname was the Ski Town. From the 20s to the 30s, it opened in 23, and I believe it, from what I can find, it closed in like 1935. So it went like 10 or 12 years. And what was interesting about the ski jump that is related to number 7 mine is that they had the man trip. So you have a wash house at number 7 where the men went in and took showers, put their work clothes on. They went to the office, they got their tags off the wall, their number, they put it on. They went into the man trip, and then they got on to the mine cars that took them down to where they were mining. But when the ski jump was operating on weekends, they let skiers that got off from the snow trains that we had in Cle Elum, and they would get onto a sleigh that cost them $1 a day, $1 a trip to go to the man trip at number 7. And they would get in the mine cars and they'd take them all the way up, almost to the ridge, to the portal where it comes out. All the mines had a portal that was mostly for ventilation, so they'd get fresh air in there. Plus the cars, they'd pull the cars up full of coal, and then they'd have a switch, and then they would come gravity feed all these cars down to the tipo at the bottom where numbers on 7 Hill up there, and empty their cars. This lasted for quite a while, maybe like 8 years, until somebody got hurt riding the mine cars up to the portal. And then they didn't want the liability anymore of that, so that ceased. And then after that, it's kind of sketchy how the skiers got up all the way up there, but there's stories of sleighs that took them up there, up Montgomery Road, and to get them up there. Okay, in 1937, number 7 mine closed. Just because of the coal, the demand for coal was down, and because of the coal seam went under the Yakima River, it got too expensive to mine that seam anymore. So they closed it in 1937. So then this is the starting of, this is 2010, when we found out that the annexation of property north of Cle Elum up to the power lines was being considered. When annexation and master development plan were being reviewed, we were told that there would be a green belt that would preserve the dignity of our existing neighborhood and save the mining history of Cle Elum. The number 7 mine and the independent mine down by the senior center, that's the reason why Cle Elum's here. And we just felt that it was really important to save this history. In May of 2021, after seeing the phase 1 application of the development, that there was no green belt, but changed to open space. A green belt means you just have a belt of property between the new property and the old property. But a lot of this green belt property was developable property. So what they did, they changed it from green belt to open space. Open space just means open space. It can be sand rock, it can be a slag pile, it can be wetlands, more or less just non-developable property. So that took away the preservation of this mining history. So what can we do? So in May of 2021, after we saw this phase 1 application, this is when we realized that there was no protection for our history. This is when we formed the number 7 Hill Historic Preservation Committee. On July 8th, 2021, we gave a tour of the mining site to the City Heights team. Also in July of 2021, a revised phase 1 plat application was approved. In this revised application, City Heights traded 4/10 of an acre for a park, for Miners Memorial Park. They traded that for open space that they needed to move the Summit View Road to Reed Street. So they wanted to move Summit View. Summit View Road was up by Park Street, between Steiner and Park Street, up West 6th Street. But they decided they wanted to move Summit View down to Reed Street. So to do that, they had to go through open space. It's on the western side of the number 7 slag piles. So they traded that property. So we did end up with almost, 4/10 of an acre is almost 3 city lots. 3 city lots is 18,000 square feet. 0.4 of an acre is 17,000 square feet. So what our goals are now, I mean, we still want to preserve this history up there. The 4/10 of an acre covers the wash house foundation, but there's other foundations next to it, the old office foundation, and the other side of it is it's like a water holding reservoir tank. And so we still want to preserve all this, but we don't have anything legally to stand on. The legal part is all done. So all we are relying on right now is for somebody to realize they need to do the right thing and save this history. And that's why we want to inform everybody here about this, because the more people that know about this, especially in a small town like Cle Elum, the word gets around. And I was always told that you can always find some good in everyone. So we're hoping for that. And that's our only stand. So another example of this was the winery up in Suncadia, and it's on the number 9 mine site. And when they found out about that history up there, they took that history and ran with it. They made a big deal about the foundations up there and the mine entrance. They made a big deal out of all that. And we were just hoping when the developers saw this history that we have here, that they would say, wow, yeah, this will be great PR for us. This would be a great opportunity for us to get in contact with the community and make a win-win situation for everybody. And we're still hoping for that. So we've got some here, and after we inside, and once we get through the pictures, I would like any questions, comments, advice, anything that anybody has to offer on it would be very appreciated.
What's your pointer?
My pointer. Okay. So the property that we got, the 4/10 of an acre, what that is it's the wash house foundation. It's really a cool foundation. You can see in there where the water runs, the cement floors. We get a
Lauren,
picture.
can you use the microphone?
Yeah.
You
Oh, I
can,
need
you
the
can twist it,
microphone.
but you can twist it however you want.
Oh.
You can twist it.
So the wash house foundation, that's where they went in. They called it the dirty side and the clean side. They take their work clothes, they take their street clothes off, they put their work clothes on, then they'd walk over. But that's the wash house right there. And we still have the foundation is, where's that? So you can see they hung their wet clothes in there, and you can see there's ventilation on the top. It's a big building. The other property that's not included in this 0.4 acres is the office, and that's where the miners went in and they got their numbers off the wall, so they knew who was in the mine. They got their lanterns that were either battery charged or cobalt. After a while, they were battery. So that's the office building right there. It's just west. We're looking east. So that's just west. It's real close to the wash house, but it's still not covered. So this is the TIPO. And this is where
Yeah, Michael, you got your back to everybody.
I can.
that's okay. The TIPO, and you can see the train cars went right in that gap there, and they went under there, and the mine cars came down that TIPO and dumped the coal into those cars, and they were backed up. You know where the cement water tanks are in Cle Elum up on the hill. That this track went almost all the way to where those water tanks are, and there was cars parked there, and they just bring a car in, fill it up, and then they'd bring another car in and fill it up. And thank you, Scott. He's the one that not this one, the next one. Okay, the same picture. You can't see the wash house, but you can see the TIPO. The coal cars would come down through that protected cover in there, and then they would dump it into the cars there. Okay, remember this covered area there. And next, this is looking down through that covered area, looking south, looking from north to south. So there's a mine car that would go down, and then they would dump it in to those cars, and then they would pull them back up. You can see other cars here. Looks like these are empties on this side, and that's a full cars on that side. Okay, this is an interesting picture. Same typo, but looking west. And this is a pretty cool picture because, okay, the tracks went down. You can see a track there. There used to be a bridge there. The foundations are still there for the bridge. It would go down to like where Crystal Creek was, and that spur that goes up the coal mine trail would be there. They would get onto that Roslyn spur from South, and then they'd come back down to Cle Elum. Right here, that's the Sandona homestead. And that's, okay, we know Dave Sandona, his dad, Gene's dad, Tony Sandona, Tony's mom and dad, and all I know their names from is Uno and Nono. And that's where they homestead. I guess Uno and Nono mean it's grandma and grandpa in Italian. That's all I know. And there was a really cool story about Uno. I think that was the grandmother. She was a real small lady that he would lower her into a hole to dig the well. It's like a 60-foot well. And she would go down there and she'd pull on the rope. And he'd pull a bucket of dirt up. And when he thought she needed something to eat or something, he'd pull her back up too. Okay, this house back here, you remember Doug Browning? His mom and dad, they lived there for a long time. Okay, this house, Sandona house, that's Mick Mancus's house now. That's where Mick Mancus lives. So, okay, and then back to the Brownings, they lived there and for a long time. And for some reason, they sold that place. And I think it was Grandpa, Doug Browning's grandpa, that actually started the homestead there. And for some reason, after a while, they sold that place and moved down to where my brother Steve lives now. It's on Reed and Sims. So that's a lot of history there. Okay, go to the next one. So this is looking from Reed Street. And that's the slide pile when it was as big as it was going to be. We can remember when I was little, my brother can also, we can remember there was a lone pine tree on top of that slag pile for years and years and years until Augie Petrich, these coal piles caught on fire, and they, from spontaneous combustion or from some other way, they caught on fire, and all the coal dust and the slag and stuff burned, and it turned that rock, that slag, red. And Augie Petrich took that red rock is what we called it, and he turned them into cinder blocks. And there's a lot of places around here that were built out of those cinder blocks that were called red rock. So when when he did his crushing up there, he cut the top of that off. He was looking for red rock, and so it's not as big as it used to be, but you can just see how much slag came out of that mine. So yeah, right here would be the corner of 5th Street, where that pole is, and Reed Street here. And we're looking back almost to the edge of the hill, looking north up there. Okay. Okay, the boiler house that I was talking about earlier, that the strip mines furnished coal. The strip mines were up here on this ridge And they brought the coal down because it was gravity feed down to the boiler house. And you can, the boiler house is right there.
Or this one.
But this is interesting because these are the stables where they had mules. And you can see these are all mine timbers, and they're working on making mine timbers out of all this wood and stuff. And so they use mules to do their logging, most of the logging, and that's where they kept their mules. This is, if you know where the, okay, 6th Street, it's probably almost a mile, maybe more than a half a mile north up past the power lines. All the foundations for this are still there too. So the next picture, you can see the smoke coming out of the boiler house. Next one. That's the picture of the boiler house close up. So it was just a steam. Okay, the question I have, this is where they produce electricity for the mines, and Cle Elum got some of their first. Where did they get the water? Where did the water come from? That's.
I don't know if anybody knows that, but when that wash house for number 7 was built, that water came from Roslyn.
Came all the way from Roslyn?
For the wash house, yeah, yes. Because it was all company, the NWI was the headquarters in Roslyn. The water for the men washed it until it closed in 1937.
Okay.
That was Roslyn water.
Okay.
You can find the trail pipeline back where my house was.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't figure that out. They got a steam plant, but if you go up there now, I mean, there's no water up there that would run something like that. But so that's a cool picture there. Yeah.
Did you repeat what I said?
Pardon? Oh, what Roy said, he heard that there was a main water line coming down from Roslyn to feed the wash house and the number 7 wash house and the boiler house. And that's really interesting, because that would be quite a water line back then. It's probably wood with wire around it, probably, huh? Yeah. This is a picture of miners at number 7. And the sign says, notice to all miners, stop at the firehouse office for instructions in the
Morning?
before entering the mine. And so they had methane gas in the mines. It was really hazardous. I'm not sure if they were talking about that or if they were talking about dynamite and powder that they used in there. Not sure about that picture. But that's a cool picture.
The guy on the far right, you see a lamp hanging from his belt. That thing, that's a safety lamp.
Safety lamp?
That guy led the way into the mine to check for methane or carbon monoxide, or they call it black sand. To let them know which way to direct the air into the mine to flush that gas out.
Can you repeat that?
That lamp replaced the canaries in the coal mines.
So if that lamp went out,
Went out, then
you're in bad air. Okay, this was the leader for the miners to go,
if
if they followed him in there.
flame grew, then you were in methane. So with alcohol.
Okay.
Can you say, repeat what he said?
Pardon?
Repeat what he said.
So what Nick said is that lantern that he's holding there, it gave an indicator of methane gas in the mine. So when that lamp went out, they knew there was too much methane and it was a dangerous area, right?
Too much carbon dioxide.
Too much carbon dioxide. Okay, so it wasn't breathable. Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you for that. That's interesting. Are those carbide lamps there, or are those battery operated? I don't know.
Carbide. Yeah, they're carbide.
Okay. Okay, this is the entrance this is where the mine cars went into the mine. And that's the entrance to the mine right there. So once the cars came out of there, they were all gravity fed down on this trestle. And next one, you can see the whole system of trestles there. I mean, amazing the craftsmanship and the work that went into. And this is the canyon. If you go up on Seven Hill and go up to the power lines, it's that canyon that goes up towards the ridge. And they just had these switchbacks that, yeah, with the mine cars, and you can see a little helper engine there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the coal dock in Cle Elum. So when the coal was brought down from Roslyn, where the coal mine trail is, and when that coal was brought out of number 7, all the mines, it came down to the coal dock. And what they had there was a big pit that the cars would go over the top of, and they would dump their coal into that pit. And you can see, you know, this is probably taken from the old South Cle Elum Bridge, because that's where Crystal Creek comes into the river right there. So you can kind of get an idea. Hartwig Boulevard, if you take a left on Hartwig Boulevard and going towards South Cle Elum, it's right on that bend on that road. It's right close to that. So yeah, I remember that when I was young, that was still there. So this big scoop thing would go take of that pit, and then it was needed. I think that the last one. Oh, somebody had a lot of ambition up there and built that tree house. This was on 7th Street, so it's on Hillcrest. 7th Street was up one street up, and this family, I guess, built a tree house. I just thought that was pretty cool. Oh, okay. So back to our park and everything. This is right here. That's the foundation of old wash house right there. And this line around it is that 0.4 acres that we have for a miners memorial park. And the office building foundation is right there. So you can see it's not within that boundary. And this is all, it's very, very, very evident that this stuff is all can be a historic site. Everything. It's 120 years old. This whole thing could be a historic site. And so what we want to do is we'd like to get some more of this property. Right here is a stormwater retention underground retention tanks, and that's on Reed and 6. So above this is non-buildable. It's like 2 or 3 lots big. So we have a couple lots in between there, and there's a couple lots over here too. So if we could save that, it would protect our history. It would give us our green belt that we thought we were going to get. And we just need somebody to cooperate with us. There's grants out there. There's foundations out there that would be interested in helping with this. The perfect scenario, I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of time here, almost done. The perfect scenario in all of this would have been if the city and the developer and our committee would have all worked in harmony together. We could have made this all work. But we're down to almost the desperation stage of all this, because like I said, we don't have anything legally to stand on. And we know that a developer has to make money off their property. And so if there was a way that we could get foundations, foundation, or a foundation, I mean, with people with, money in a foundation. I'm not talking about a cement foundation. And grants, there's a lot of historical grants and stuff. If we could just get that, working, because we know that, a developer needs to get money, but I think the developer could still get the money out of this, plus the big PR relationship with Cle Elum and the Upper County would be huge for the developers. So pass the word around, talk to people. That's all we've got to go on right now. Really. So, yeah. Oh, this one, this is the pit. This is a recent picture of the Wash House Foundation with the floor still there. It's all there. It's covered with pine needles and stuff. This is just another view. It's beautiful up there. It's all timbered. It's just a beautiful place for a park. What we'd like to see happen is have this park. We'd like to have a couple regulation bocce ball courses there, have all the picnic structures and everything look like old mining buildings, have it all handicapped access, plus have it real low maintenance. So what we do here is represent native plants in the Upper County, just native plants like vine maple, Oregon grape, hazelnut. I mean, there's all kinds of really cool. So it'd be really low maintenance, and that's our goals. And we haven't given up yet. So if there's any questions. Refreshment.
You need to repeat the question so that everyone in the back can hear it.
Okay, question.
The property that Mike Miller donated to the town, that's further east, isn't it?
Yeah, it's way. Yeah, that's between Montgomery and PO. That's yeah, that's a long ways away from there.
So repeat that.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure you
Yeah,
repeat.
repeat what she asked about Mike Miller.
I'm doing what?
Yep. You just, so they can know what the question was.
Oh, the question was, Mike Miller donated some property to the city, but that's down further east. It's between, I think, PO and Montgomery up on the hill there. Yeah. Any other questions?
At your talk at the Carpenter House, night at the museum talk,
Mhm.
you mentioned talking like DHG and
Yeah.
the historical, the station department. And are you still pursuing that, or did it die?
Okay, so she's asking about that.
Yeah, she was wondering if DAP, that's the Department of Archaeological History Preservation, it's a state organization, and they did become aware of this, and they have been looking into this, and we think they did do a study on it last year, but we haven't heard the outcome of that study and what they recommended to be done with this property.
If you go back to that white map, you can,
If you go back to the white.
okay. So that's squiggly line, Gordon, is
Yeah,
where,
okay, the
where
wiggly
DAP has
line.
suggested.
This is where DAP suggested to
that be
protect this area around it. This is our park that we got here. So this land is land that DAP said that don't touch.
Well,
until-
suggested.
Yeah, suggested. Yeah, don't disturb without a study and a permit. So, yeah, DAP is involved in this, and how much we don't really know. Hopefully that'll work out. Hmm.
mine opening? Where was the original mine opening? And where you said the strip
There
mining
was-
done at the original
yeah,
mine opening?
The
Okay.
original mine, okay, she wants to know where the original mine opening to number 7 was. And it was up, where all those trestles were up at the top. There was a hole up there. That's where the cars came out. The man trip, that's where the miners from the wash house went into the mine, it's just 100 yards north of where the wash house was. When I was a little kid, I remember they blocked it off. They put railroad ties or creosoted railroad ties to block it off. They staggered them, cribbed them up so you couldn't go into the entrance. But I remember as a little kid, you could go up there and you could feel the cold air coming out of there from where the man trip was. It's still there. Augie Petrich, when he did the Red Rock cinder block thing, he blocked that off. I think Northern Pacific Railroad wanted him to block it off just for safety reasons, because there was a lot of openings back then that kids or anybody could go into. So they went around and filled in all these entrances. So it's still there. I know it's there. So
How many times you get in there?
yeah, well, a couple times. Not that one, but I did go into Patrick's mine entrance and number 5 entrance. Woodchucks used to live in number 5 entrance, so there was a big hole there, and we'd crawl into there. Sure.
So the map that you're showing us that you want to keep, where is at the end of Stafford going up, by your house and up on the hill, and being developed, is that going through this property?
Yeah, this property is all, okay. She wants to know if all this property that we want to save is within the development.
Yeah, because they're developing that road up there to get up to
Right.
the top.
Yeah, this is within that development. And you can see the lots that they want to have here. Like lot 28 would be right where the office foundation is. And these lots here too. So and there's 2 lots there.
4, 2.
4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Gordon, so where's the flag on top of the water?
flag would be, this is Reed Street. The flag would be up here.
Up here.
Yeah, okay, you see all that there? That's the flag pile.
This right here.
That's all the flag pile right there. So on top of that would be where the flag is still.
So you're trying to save the slag pile too.
Hmm? What?
Slag pile, you're not trying to save
That's
that.
open space.
No, that's open
Oh, it's
space.
open
So you
space.
She was
clarify.
wondering if we wanted to save the flag pile part of it, but that's open space. There's not much you can do with that. It's really steep and there's just not much you can do with that. Yeah. So we're more, yeah, we want to, from Reed Street all the way up to Park Street is the area. And that far up, I mean, that would be a green belt. This is probably like 120 feet, one city lot long, and then go from here all the way to like here. Because we don't have, with that there, we don't have any parking. And we wanted to use that foundation of the old office for like an interpretive center. We could build a building for people to go in, and it's just we're hoping for a lot. Any other questions?
Was there an old cemetery up there at one time?
She asked if there was an old cemetery up there at one time. Yes, there was. The exact location isn't really known, but it was moved to Laurel Hill. 1911. It was moved, but we don't really know where that was, but yeah, there was a cemetery there. How big? There's not much records of that.
In the 60s, there was somebody digging a basement up there and they ran into it.
Roy says that somebody was digging a basement up there somewhere and found a skeleton.
Get the Native Americans involved in that, they'll stop the development.
Pardon?
We already tried.
Oh, yeah.
We tried.
We aren't trying, they said that a Native American nation found out about an old cemetery that they'd stop the project. But we want to make it very clear, we don't want to stop the project. We just want it done right. We want to save our history. Somebody has a right to buy property and develop it. I mean, this is America, but let's do it right. And that's what we're asking for.
Two questions. One, have you ever thought of doing the Indian Preserve Liberty, up by Squaw Creek and all that? Try to do what they did to preserve the town of Liberty.
Yeah. He was wanting to know if it'd be something like Saving Liberty. That was a Forest Service issue, I believe, that Fred Krueger helped a lot with. But see, all of our legal means, we don't have anything legally that we can stand on, because back in 2011, it was signed, the master development plan was signed off, and we thought this history would be protected, but it wasn't. So we have a different situation because we don't have a legal stand. And I believe Fred got a representative or a senator involved in that, and that was kind of a different project.
I was just asking. And second question was, so when they were building the spur, was the Samuel Sack route supposed to also connect to that spur?
Mm-hmm. The Samuel Sack guardhouse that Fred Krueger helped save was supposed to be a railroad depot.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be in the depot. And that was because the French had silver mines up towards Fish Lake up there.
Yeah.
But World War I broke out and they lost their funds for that. And it never started up again after that. But that was supposed to be a railroad station.
Yeah.
We have another question online, and it's from Lucy. She asked,
From Lucy Temple?
yeah, did he mention how much funding is needed to secure the property?
How much funding is needed to secure the property? Boy, that's a good question. The way the market is today, a city lot. Yeah, we don't know the answer to that question. That's why we would I wish we had more communication with everybody on this. Mostly the developer, if we had more communication and interest, the way we feel, preserving history for the community, I think would give you just as much pleasure as a buck in your pocket. And if we could just get that thought in the right spot, it can all be worked out. Yeah, I don't know what the value is of all that property. Yeah. Any other question?
Houses right there in that area?
Yes.
Houses in that area?
Yes.
Seems like it'd be better if it's considered as an alternative center. Might be a great spot.
So Mark's question was, are all these supposed to be houses? Yeah. And each numbered up there is a lot. All those are lots. So, and we need a few more. I kind of probably 8 or 10 lots is what we need to, make it all work.
I've heard about, I'm not trying to downplay the developer or anything, but I've heard the person up there likes to cut everything short. So have you ever thought of putting more buffers in? Likes to go right up to the property lines.
Yeah, well, like I say, we don't have anything legal. He wants to know if we could put more buffers in up there, but we just don't have that legal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just asking.
That would be, yeah, it'd be nice. If we just had our green belt that we thought we were gonna have in the first place, this would all be fine. I mean. Yeah. Any other questions?
How can we support the committee, and is there a way to keep in touch with the subdivision committee that you're part of?
And she's wanting to know what she can do to help our committee and how to get in contact with our committee. I can give you information on that after how to contact, but right now it's just word of mouth. I mean,
No
the more
website?
people talk about it, and hopefully it gets into the ears of the people that we want to hear it, and just, okay, I got to do the right thing. This is the right thing to do. That's all. That's our game plan right now. I mean,
And what is the right thing to do? Just give a bunch of money to,
pardon?
what is the right thing to do?
In our dream world.
Have the developers
Yeah.
donate.
She wants to know what's the right thing for the developer to do. And I think the right thing for the developer to do is, first of all, realize the importance of this history.
No, I was asking what you want other people to do. Is it you just need a bunch of people to donate?
No, we aren't asking for money or anything. We just want the developer to say, okay, we're willing to work with you. And like I say, right now, the developer, the perfect scenario right now would be if our committee, the city, and the developer would all be working together. That's not going to happen, because the city is under court orders that they can't talk, and because of a legal thing hanging over their head. So that's not going to happen. So we're pretty much out on our own on this. And it would be nice to have all that support. But
Y'all talk to the developers though.
pardon?
Y'all talk to the developers though, haven't you?
The developer knows. Yeah, they're aware of what we wanted.
Yeah, and y'all are able to talk to the developers again.
We're trying, but it's really hard. We invited them here tonight, and yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard. It's frustrating to say that. Wow, it's terrible, but we're just hoping for some. That's why we want all you people that know about it. And hopefully, somebody here will have a connection. We about done?
Yeah.
Okay. One more.
My question is, I'm pretty much into the history of this area, and this is the first I've heard of this. The Tribune is just, they scream for people to write some articles for them. This seems like a perfect way to generate interest or information.
Okay. She was thinking that maybe the Tribune would be a good place to go. We've put editorials in there about this situation before. And maybe, I mean, if we had somebody that had that ability to help us write an article, we'd be encouraged. We'd like to hear from them. Okay, we're over time limit. So
Thank you.
thanks everybody for being here.